Once, in the midst of life's challenges and uncertainties, I found myself facing trials that tested my faith. Doubt and fear tried to overshadow my hope. But in that dark moment, I discovered the truth that I wanted to share with you, a reminder that can inspire and strengthen your faith too. Listen carefully, for these words are meant just for you. They come from my heart to yours, urging you to stand strong in your faith. No matter what difficulties you may encounter, remember this: God is always with you, right by your side. He's not a distant and uncaring figure, but a loving Father who walks with you through every hardship and stands beside you during every triumph. In moments of doubt, let us recall the comforting words of Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. These words have been my shelter and a source of courage. They remind me that God's presence remains steadfast even in the face of adversity. Think of Moses, chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. When he stood before the Red Sea with the enemy's army approaching, it seemed impossible to escape. Yet Moses never doubted. He trusted in God's power and witnessed the miracle of the Red Sea parting, leading the Israelites to safety. Let the story of Moses inspire you to have unwavering faith, even when things seem insurmountable. During times of weakness, find solace in the words of Joshua chapter 1 verse 9. It says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." These words have echoed through generations, reminding us that God's presence empowers us to face any obstacle with unwavering strength. Consider the story of David, a young shepherd boy who defeated the giant Goliath with a single stone. Even when others doubted and mocked him, David remained steadfast in his faith. He declared in Psalm chapter 27 verse 1, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Let David's bravery inspire you to stand strong in your faith, knowing that God's purpose is greater than any giant you may face. In times of uncertainty, hold on to the promise found in Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." These words assure us that God's plans for our lives are good, even when the path ahead seems unclear. Think of Joseph, who endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. In his darkest moments, Joseph trusted in God's plan. Eventually, he rose to a position of great influence and saved his family from famine. Let Joseph's story be a reminder that God can turn our trials into triumphs and our pain into purpose. When doubt threatens to overshadow your faith, remember the words of Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Faith is not dependent on visible proof. It is a steadfast belief in the unseen, a conviction that God is working all things together for your good. Reflect on the story of Peter, who walked on water with Jesus. As long as Peter kept his eyes fixed on Jesus, he could do the impossible. But when he focused on the storm around him, he began to sink. Let this story remind you to keep your eyes fixed on God, for with Him you can walk on the waters of life with unwavering faith. In moments of weakness, remember the words of 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And it is in our weakness that God's strength shines through. When you feel inadequate, trust that God's grace will sustain you and empower you to overcome. Think of Esther, who found herself in a position to save her people from destruction. Although initially afraid, she found the courage to say, "If I must die, I must." Esther's bravery teaches us that sometimes we must step out in faith, even when the outcome is uncertain. Trust that God will guide and protect you as you take bold steps in obedience. In moments of discouragement, meditate on the words of Romans chapter 8, verse 22. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them. Even in the midst of hardship and setbacks, God is at work, weaving a beautiful tapestry of your life. Your trials are not in vain. They are part of a greater purpose. Reflect on the story of the disciples, caught in a storm at sea. As the waves crashed against their boat and fear threatened to consume them, Jesus spoke, saying, "Do not be afraid. Take courage. I am here." In that moment, the disciples found peace and assurance. Let this story remind you that even in the stormiest seasons of life, Jesus is present, speaking words of comfort and strength. When you feel alone, remember the promise in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. So be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, and do not panic before them, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. You are never alone. God's presence is a constant source of comfort and encouragement, even in the darkest of times. Reflect on the story of the woman with the issue of blood, who reached out and touched the hem of Jesus' garment, believing that she would be healed. Her faith made her whole. Let her story inspire you to reach out to Jesus, knowing that in Him there is healing, restoration, and limitless possibilities. In moments of doubt, remember the words of Psalm chapter 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Take a moment to quiet your mind and find peace in the assurance that God is in control. Even in the midst of life's chaos, He is the steady anchor that holds you firm. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think you would do if you were in the shoes of Moses? Would you be strong in faith like him? Or would you give up easily? In our time right now, very few people have that kind of faith. Most of the time, when something happens that doesn't go our way, we question God or try to solve it on our own, relying solely on our knowledge. But is that truly the best approach? Take a moment to ponder your response. Are you willing to trust in God's plan even when it seems uncertain? Will you have the courage to step out in faith and reach out to Jesus, believing in His power to heal, restore, and guide you through life's challenges? Remember, faith opens up a realm of limitless possibilities, where God's love and grace can work wonders in your life. Lastly, remember the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 28, verse 20. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Jesus' promise is eternal. He is with you every step of the way. When you stand strong in your faith, you tap into the power of the Creator of the universe, who has promised to never leave you. So, my friend, I encourage you today to stand strong in your faith. Let these words be a reminder that God is always with you and by your side. When doubts arise, lean on His promises and draw strength from the stories of those who have gone before us. Trust that in every season, God is working for your good and guiding you toward a future filled with hope. May your faith remain steadfast, your spirit be lifted, and your heart be filled with the assurance that God is with you every step of the way. Stand strong, for you are never alone.